Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Mikaela Mayer had this to say ahead of this weekend's mega match. I wasn't afraid to go to 147. I want to fight the big names, challenge, and test myself.
Seems like they made this fight with relative ease. Both fighters wanted it, both Mikaela and Natasha.
Mikaela Mayer has fought 2 times since that decision loss to Alicia Baumgartner. A get-back year following her lone pro defeat that saw Mayer twice move up in weight. A third leap was necessary, though for good cause. The determination headed into 2024 was to only take fights with a greater purpose. A shot at Liverpool's Natasha Jonas and her IBF welterweight title ticks all the boxes. I wasn't afraid to go to 147 because I saw how my body was filling out, Mayer told Boxing Scene. But this made it easier for me. It's the name. I want to fight the big names. I want to challenge myself and test myself. I'm not about to wait around for nobody.
Mikaela wanted a rematch with Alicia after the loss, but Alicia decided to go another route. She decided to shoot for undisputed.
And I don't begrudge her for that, because I think if it would have happened the other way and Mikaela would have won, Mikaela would have did the same thing. She would have moved on. She would have shot for undisputed. But Alicia won, so here we are.
The rematch between them didn't happen, and Mikaela ended up moving up in weight.
Mikaela Mayer has yet to know what it will feel like to fight at welterweight, or if it's the best fit for her physically for the moment, and presumably through her next fight, should she win on Saturday, it's the best fit for her career. I always knew that I would eventually move up to 147. I stayed at 130 longer than I expected, and then jumped to 147 sooner than I expected. There are reasons for it. It wasn't my body that said, we've got to go to 147, but my body did tell me, we can't stay at 130, and we're not staying at 135. Then Top Rank called and said, we know you wanted to fight Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron. They're a little bit busy right now. We've got this opportunity at 147, though. This is the next available option for you, so here we are.
Remember what was going on. She couldn't get a rematch with Alicia. Katie had the run of the place at 135, but she was up there at 140 fighting Chantel Cameron.
Chantel had the run of the place at 140. So it was a situation to where all the alphabet titles, all the belts, from 130 to 135 to 140, they were all tied up. None were available for Mikaela Mayer to fight for. That's what it was, but she managed to keep busy and rebound off the loss to Alicia Baumgartner, and she managed to land this fight with relative ease due to the relationship between the people at Top Rank and Sky Sports and Boxer.
Implications of the match.
If Mikaela Mayer wins on Saturday, she will effectively become a 2-division champion and one of 3 champions in today's welterweight division. The other 2, Jessica McCaskill, who's going to be fighting Ivana Habazin very soon, and Sandy Ryan. Those are the other welterweight champions. Mikaela Mayer herself would be reintegrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. She had a quality resume, good resume as a super featherweight. If she adds the scalp of Natasha Jonas to her collection of championship scalps, the scalp of Eva Brotnicka
For the WBO title.
the scalp of Maiva Hamadouche
For the IBF.
and Natasha Jonas, once again for the IBF, just at a new weight, that will be enough to get Mikaela Mayer back on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, and effectively would eject Natasha Jonas from the list, per the rules that govern it. No fighter coming off a loss, absent of a world title, is allowed to maintain a rank. The list is only for winners, and only for champions, reigning champions, active champions.
If Mikaela wins, she's in and Natasha's out.
Mikaela Mayer, in spite of being a newbie to this weight, having not yet fought there, she still is the taller, longer fighter of the 2, the younger fighter as well. Mikaela's 33, whereas Natasha's 39.
Those are her advantages, that she's younger, taller, and longer.
Though not stronger, perhaps not stronger, comparatively, it seems to me that Natasha Jonas packs a bigger wallop. She's got a bigger punch than Mikaela Mayer. Natasha Jonas is a southpaw, whereas Mikaela is an orthodox fighter. And of course, Natasha Jonas, the reigning champion, will have home field advantage. Mikaela needs a decisive victory here. She needs to make it clear, she needs to make it apparent, because that's what's working against her.
Natasha's the champion. She's the house fighter. She's got home field advantage.
She can't afford for this fight to be close. With Coach Al Mitchell in her corner, I'm sure they've devised a strategy, a formidable one, for Natasha Jonas, who is stronger but older, somewhat slower.
It's a good fight.
My heart is with Natasha, who I've loved for many years now. But my head is with Michaela. I think she's gonna do it.
I do.
I think she wants it a little more than Natasha, given where they are in their careers, that she's still 33, whereas Natasha's 39.
She needs this.
She needs that belt. I think she's gonna get at this weekend. Men's welterweight news per a tweet from Rick Glacier. Danny Garcia is now angling for a fight with Terence Crawford, a cash-out fight. Let's have a better look at this. Danny hasn't done much in boxing in recent years. Factually, hasn't fought since 2022, July of 2022, which by the time they do actually fight, it could be 2 years since his last fight. A majority decision win over a completely shot Jose Benavidez. And prior to that, Danny Garcia lost to Errol Spence in December of 2020. Danny Garcia would be ill-equipped to face Terence Crawford, but after all, it is a Danny Garcia cash-out fight. But no one needs to see this fight, let alone have to pay $75 to watch this thrashing. This would be another PBC special, another PBC pay-per-view no one needs to see, this time in association with Amazon as the distributor. Definitely not a good look for Amazon.
If Danny Garcia all of a sudden wants to fight Terence Crawford, then he must be desperate. He was supposed to be fighting Lara.
We've been hearing about that fight since last year, what was supposed to be the fight between Erislandy Lara and Danny Garcia. The fight they got Michael Zarafa to step aside since he's the mandatory challenger, because Danny was going to get his crack at the apple, and that never happened because they don't have the resources to do it.
Give me the condensed version.
The WBA just reordered Erislandy Lara to fight Michael Zarafa, and if he's fighting Zarafa, he's not fighting Danny Garcia.
So now Danny doesn't have Lara to fight for Lara's WBA title, and rumor has it he wants to fight Terence now. Terence, who he's never had time for.
When they were both there, at the same weight. Danny never had time for Terence. Oh, he had time for Bam Bam Rios. He had time for Ivan Redkach and Adrian Granados, but he never had time for Terence, even after Top Rank offered him the fight. Offered him a headline show.
Headline with Terence Crawford. $3 million guarantee and a pay-per-view upside.
He didn't want it, and that was years ago. He didn't pursue it, so all these years later, if he's now angling for a fight with that same Terence Crawford, it has to be because he's desperate. It has to be because the Lara fight might not happen. That fell through. Lara's under orders to fight Zarafa. You're left out here in the cold without a dance partner, and you want a big fight.
Even if it's one you're not ready for.
No, you don't go from fighting Jose Benavidez all the way back there in 2022 to fighting Terence Crawford close to 2 years or 2 years later in 2024. You do that, you must just be looking to cash out. You're not aiming to win.
That's Al Heyman's legacy, his contribution to the sport.
It's what he taught them after he funneled all those fighters from Golden Boy Promotions over to his PBC. That is the brand of boxer that he mass-produced. Fighters that aren't actually fighting to win. His perverse brand of boxing.
Was Charlo fighting to win against Canelo?
Is that what Errol was doing with Terence Crawford last year?
If he wasn't equipped to do it. Neither was Deontay Wilder opposite the ring, Tyson Fury.
More recently, opposite the ring, Joseph Parker. No, opposite the ring, Joseph Parker. Deontay Wilder showed up to get paid. He didn't show up to fight. He didn't show up to win. He showed up for a check. That's what we saw.
And what do you think Danny wants to do? Danny's showing up for a check. He's not showing up to win. He's just showing up to get paid.
How do I know? How did I arrive at that conclusion? Well, let me fill you in on a little secret.
What?
2 years of inactivity for any boxer. It's no bueno.
No.
It's no good.
No.
And Terence fucking Crawford is not the guy that you go in there and fight off for 2 years of inactivity. Not unless you're just showing up for a check. You're cashing out. You're ready.
PBC fighters are getting desperate. Familiar ones, familiar faces.
Former champions Jarrett Hearn and Mark Mixayo fought in very small shows that flew largely under the radar. Julian Williams, he was in action not that long ago in Atlantic City at the Showboat,
One of the smaller casinos in Atlantic City on a boardwalk, and what was a very small show next to nobody knew about.
And did you know That manufactured boogeyman Luis Ortiz was in action this past weekend south of the border, way south of the border, all the way down there in Colombia, opposite the ring of Journeyman. You had to go to Colombia to fight a Journeyman?
Al Heyman couldn't find you somebody to fight here in America?
No, because he doesn't have the resources. The same resources he used to are the same abundance of fight dates. Thus, the PBC stable is growing desperate. Danny Garcia among them. And that's why he's finally warmed to the idea that he should fight Terrence Crawford.
He's desperate. They all are.
I told you this would happen. In men's heavyweight news, the continued back and forth between Lennox Lewis and Eddie Hearn. Lewis, who seems to be against Anthony Joshua fighting Francis Ngannou, saying, "Okay, Eddie Hearn, I know this is the promoter in you speaking, so I'll break it down like the boxing fan I am. If AJ beats Ngannou, which he should, does that elevate him to a shot at undisputed, beating Valine and Ngannou?"
What the hell was wrong with fighting Otto Valine and Francis Ngannou? If they were good enough for Tyson Fury, why wouldn't they be good enough for Anthony?
Eddie Hearn responded by saying, "Break down whatever you want. His Excellency confirmed the plan. Turkey al-Sheikh, the winner of Joshua versus Ngannou versus the winner of Fury versus Usyk. The dream has always been undisputed, and we are only one win away from challenging for it. No problem with you preferring Parker or Zhang getting a shot at undisputed over AJ. That seems to be what he wants."
I told you in my previous video, I don't think Lennox is afraid that Anthony's gonna lose to Francis Ngannou. I think he's afraid that he's gonna beat him, and beat him in better fashion than Fury did.
Lennox Lewis has had an axe to grind with Anthony Joshua for years now, if you've been paying attention. Lennox Lewis, who said, "I still want to see AJ fight Fury and Wilder. Those are big fights, but like I told Mike Tyson, if you keep fighting guys like Lou Severese, you will never be ready for me."
Do you hear this guy? He's still advocating for Anthony to fight Wilder after that 36-minute stinker.
Wilder couldn't make it past the guy that both Anthony Joshua and Dillian Whyte beat years ago, and in more recent years, a guy who was knocked out by Joe Joyce. Wilder couldn't make it past him, and you still have it in your head that Anthony has something to prove to him.
I don't think people have realized this yet, or fully processed it, that Otto Valine did better against Fury than Wilder did. That Francis Ngannou did better against Fury than Wilder did.
And if Fury is supposed to be the premier heavyweight, king shit of the heavyweight division, then you tell me, how is it that Otto Valine and Francis Ngannou are good enough for him, but they're not good enough for Anthony, not in Lennox Lewis's eyes?
What did I tell you in my previous video? It's all about maintaining the same old narratives. That's what it's all about.
Lennox continued, "If AJ gets through Ngannou and Usyk wins undisputed, is the appetite for Usyk versus Joshua 3 out there? If Fury becomes undisputed, the man says he's vacating all the belts but the WBC and ring, so Fury, in effect, becomes the last undisputed champion until someone else can Thanos them back together."
Consider how Wilder performed against Fury and how Ngannou performed against Fury.
Francis Ngannou did not get manhandled and ragdolled like Deontay Wilder did in his last two meetings with that same Tyson Fury. No, Francis Ngannou actually held his own better, a little better, than Wilder did. So
Wilder gets ragdolled by Fury 2 times, then ragdolled again by Joseph Parker, and it's Wilder you think AJ needs to be fighting. No, you're using him.
You're using that same old narrative that's starting to wear off, that spell that people have been under for the last 4 or 5 years, that Wilder's this big bad boogeyman.
Bullshit.
And you've got it in your head that Anthony has something to prove to him. That guy didn't even try to run it back with Joseph Parker. Since the loss, I haven't seen him once advocate for a rematch. I haven't seen him advocate that they run it back. His competitive spirit.
Where is it?
Lennox is a crab in a bucket. That's what he is. He doesn't like the idea that Anthony Joshua may come out on top in all of this. No, he's a crab in a bucket, and he would prefer that Tyson Fury be thought of, be perceived as this era's premier heavyweight, even when he goes out there and embarrasses himself and embarrasses the sport against a novice MMA fighter. He would prefer that.
He'd prefer to keep talking up Wilder, like Wilder just didn't stink out the joint for 36 minutes. Joseph Parker.
It's all about taking Anthony Joshua down a peg. For Lennox Lewis, that's what it's all about. He feels that he has to. He wants to. He's been doing it for years.
He's a crab in a bucket.
Can be an all-time great. He can be accomplished as he wants to be. He's not too accomplished to be petty.
Petty.
Anthony Joshua said, I think people underestimate me. They think they can just put pressure on me because I'm not mentally all that. As much as there is hype around Ngannou, he still has to come through me, and I'm a power puncher myself. I break people's eye sockets. I broke Otto Wallin's nose and eye socket. Robert Helenius got sparked out, and I fucking ruined Dillian White's career with an uppercut. The list goes on. He has to deal with me. That is what is going to make it a good fight. And he's right that he's often underestimated, torn down, and fighters like Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, they're hyped up, put on a pedestal. But that becomes harder to do when a guy like Wilder can't make it past a guy like Parker.
And if you're still hyping up Wilder after that stinker with Joseph Parker, it becomes very clear you're one of these people with an agenda.
Lennox Lewis has got one, but he's not the only one. In the last 4 or 5 years, the Joshua versus Wilder has become a hot-button topic. You've seen that agenda pushed in several circles.
But Anthony is mentally weak.
When Tyson Fury is the one who was labeled mentally unfit to fight. He mentally cracked ahead of what was supposed to be the Klitschko rematch, all of his mental health issues, but Anthony's the one with...
He's the mentally weak one.
He's supposed to be to some people, yet he never made the excuses that Wilder made after his 2 losses to Tyson Fury, blaming anyone from Kenny Bayless to Jack Reese.
He complained about Jack Reese's quote-unquote long count. He complained about Kenny Bayless being a crab-in-the-bucket referee. He complained about his own trainer, Mark Breland, drugging him, which was never proven.
He complained about Tyson Fury cheating, loading his gloves or loading his wraps, which once again was never proven.
He even complained about his costume being too heavy. He resorted to using psychedelic mushrooms, ayahuasca, to cope with the losses to Tyson Fury. And you're telling me that Anthony's the mentally weak one.
No, what I think is you got used to saying that the last 4 or 5 years for hate of Anthony Joshua. You've been saying that for so long, you got used to it, and you're not ready to let it go. Even when you're proven wrong, even when time itself is telling a very different story to the one that you've been telling.
It gets harder to put a guy like Wilder on a pedestal when he can't make it past Joseph Parker.
And it gets harder to prop up Tyson Fury for having beaten him when in the greater scheme of things, what does it mean to beat Deontay Wilder? Joseph Parker beat Deontay Wilder, and nobody calls Joseph Parker this era's premier heavyweight.
So maybe you need to reevaluate what you think you know.